So, I spent the last few weeks designing and making the ultimate indicator holder for the mill for two reasons. The first one is that indicating is for machining what kindergarten is for not killing your children. You can't have one without the other. And the second is that she deserves it. I've learned machining on this mill and I'm pretty sure she has cried herself to sleep every night for at least the first couple of years. I do have this cheap holder, but I never liked it and I want to reach for my tools with the same boundless enthusiasm Jack the Ripper reached for his knives, so let's say goodbye to El Cheapo and say hello to my little friend. Okay, this build hinges around three cardinal principles, and the first one is that I don't want to do this every time I have to check something. So I want to bypass any tool I might have here and clamp it directly to the spindle, which is something holders generally do with this style of pretty beefy universal J clamps, but my mill doesn't exactly hang like a moose because she's a lady. And I don't need universality, so I'll start making a custom low-profile clamp for short spindles. Now, one funny thing about machining, and I don't mean haha funny, I mean dinosaur wiping rock falling from the sky funny, is that making all the faces of the stock flat and perpendicular to each other, which is essential for precision, often requires as much time as the actual operations you are going to do on the stock itself, sometimes even more. Especially if you are shooting for the best accuracy your machine can grant. Luckily, this time average accuracy is good enough, so I was swiftly able to pull my bag, picking up the torture instrument known on Earth and in Hell as a rotary table. But wait, is that piece of case ardent still a side quest? It most certainly is. I'm about to use these clamps I made a couple of videos ago that can locate and hold the stock at the same time, but I still lack a way to conveniently locate the clamps themselves at the right coordinates on the table. A smart guy in the comments suggested I could use a precisely machined sleeve, which is a brilliant idea, and since I have carbide drills of the right size, I thought of using case hardened steel, hoping for the core to be soft enough. But it wasn't. Next, I tried a piece of stainless, and this wasn't no trouble at all. But wasn't concentric either. I guess you really want a lathe for this kind of things. Without one, my first idea was to superglue a pin in the off-center hole and try to turn the exterior through to the pin. But call it flex, call it play, call it a stupid idea to begin with, it didn't work at all. The money shot was to center on the ringed hole, turn around the tool in my boring head and run it backwards to through the outside of the sleeve with the hole, which finally gave me the concentricity I was looking for. We can place the clamps in the 3 key locating points and secure the blanking position on the rotary table. Now we can finally tear a big new one on this thing. It will take a while. A better way to do it would have been using today's sponsor, PCBWay, a bunch of clever people that eat steel in the morning and ship shiny parts in the evening. And their services are very easy to access. You just need to take your CAD model, pop it into their website, choose the material and quality specs, press enter and chill while they cut and ground your parts with 5-axis CNC, lasers and EDM wire, or simply print it in metal. They are a very cool partner to have for prototyping, so check out their special offers for October and give them a try. Once the hole is to size, we need to open one side so we can push the clamp on the spindle from the side if needed. Although I think I'll just do like this most of the times, but it's nice to have options. On the other side of the hole I need to cut the flexure to have this bit clamping against the spindle. I'm using a vertical approach for this cut because it gives me a bit more confidence regarding not snapping this tiny and fairly worn cutter, But it's like slapping yourself every quarter mile when you're about to fall asleep at the wheel. It's just a matter of time. In fact, while cutting this lot, my shot got out of focus and my got out of luck. But I have a spare, so with a bit of trepidation I can finish the cut. Now, all is left to do is to cut out the external profile of the clamp, which could have been a pain down south, but thanks to the rotary table and my little clamps, I can do it all in the same setup, which makes me feel kinda smart actually. And voila!
Nice.
The part is almost done. I just need to refresh my hernias and put the vise back in place to drill two M4 holes to hold the arm and an M6 hole for the flexure clamp. And here it goes, going around tools in the spindle and clamping rock solid. Next on the list is reach. I want an arm that can go around any tool I might have mounted and bring the indicator where is needed. So I had to cut and square a few more pieces. I'll start from the clamp and work my way down. So the first piece is the connection hinge, which starts with a slot which will be a close fit with the clamp body. Then I mill out the sides to liberate the male half of the hinge from its prison of metal. But it looks like I've liberated a bit too much, and what's left isn't manly enough to do its job, so I get to start over 2 more times actually, and we'll call the third one close enough. Next is to make the countersunk holes for the M4 screws that will keep it in place, and rim a 6mm hole for the hinge, and of course round the end on the rotary table. As you'll see later, clearance has been one of the key words of this project along with and but hey, third time's the charm, and charmed I was. So now we can work on the arms and set to drill some visually impaired holes which will become the hinging points. And this operation is the main reason I built this precision stop. Doing it without would have been like waking up from a nightmare just to find a pale creature with no eyes hovering next to your bed. Instead, I breeze through them like it was nothing and rim them all to 6mm, matching the hole in the male hinge. And it all went as planned, aside for this little nipple grown on the back of one of the arms. Must have been too cold or something. But it's not a tragedy, I can hammer it back against the hardened jaw of the vise and keep going. Next, since the arms are made by 2 halves, they are held together by 2 M4 screws. So one side gets straight holes and a countersink, while the other side gets threaded holes. And as you probably know, tops can slip in these self-tightening chucks, but if you give it a good squeeze, it can pull the piece out of the— Whoa, 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 whoa! Whew! That was close, but hey, no harm, no foul, right? I can proceed and cut the female relief for the hinge, which brings the cutter a bit too close to the vise, but as the iceberg said to the Titanic, clearance is clearance, bro. A quick check when I'm close to final measure, and I can cycle through all 4 pieces and bring out an old friend. The first operation is to round the ends slightly asymmetrically, so that I can spend an hour adjusting them with a file, because wasting 5 minutes to recheck the setup would have been a waste of time. Then I measure this convenient anchor point and set my locating clamps, secure the arm in place, and cut this very large relief radius, which is going to serve a pretty cool purpose, I promise. And of course, I finish with a chamfer, the machining equivalent of a pair of red stiletto shoes. And the arms are done. The middle hinge is just a matter of 2 rimmed holes and a quick click on the rotary table. On the other hand, the dial test indicator holder bit is a whole other beast. It is the most complex part of the build, and the order of operation, or OH, is important. I start with a 8mm hole, which will serve as relief for the clamping flexure, but it could also double as a mounting spot for these plunger style indicators, which I'll probably never use in there, but I like the option. Next we make a 6mm rimmed hole for the hinge, followed by the pre-hole for the M3 threaded hole that will tight the flexure clamp. With its relative countersink, of course, because I might be a savage, but a well-mannered one nonetheless. Follows the tap, which I'm too much of a pussy to power through, honestly, so I just fit it by hand using the quill as a tap holder. Next, I cut the relief for the flexure clamp and drill a 4mm hole straight in the front to hold the stem of my indicator if needed. But a proper indicator holder calls for a dovetail, so here it comes. I start with a 3mm end mill and come in with this AliExpress dovetail cutter that is holding up like a champ since my surface gauge build. To add more versatility, I also mill out a 45-degree mounting point that also gets a nice little dovetail. And this leads us to Splitsville. I touch the top of the part with the saw, looking at the deflection on the indicator, and zero the DRO. Do the same on the bottom, split the difference, and I'm bang on center. Then a little chamfer. Ah! You know what? Chamfers on the belt grinder are better. Period. We close with the relief for the hinge and a round of round on the round table. Which brings us to the third and final cardinal value of this build. To set the indicator, I don't want knobs or bolts or anything. I want the smooth friction action of Swiss-made toys. Which starts with me shortening by hand 4 6mm pin to 12mm. Hey, not too shabby for an eyeballed operation, huh? And since we're already at the belt grinder, it's a good moment to remove the abysmal surface finish left behind by my super cheap cutters and make the whole thing very sexy. Okay, back to the friction hinge. First we mount this on the clamp, and as I said, it's a tight fit. 2 M4 screws will keep it in place. And then we can assemble the joint using this pin, which is a close fit in the arm, and holds 2 brass washers as spacers and a Belleville washer that provides the friction force. Then the mail goes on, then another train of washers, and it's all sandwiched with the other half of the arm, locked in place by these screws, which means it will never come loose by turning. So now we can... No, what's that gap? What the f... I can't tell you how thrilled I was to do something pretty sketchy to a piece I've already done 3 times after I thought the project was over. But that's what life looks like when you are an idiot. Luckily, it came out reasonably fine. There's still the shoulder of the slot for the tight fit I want, so it's good. And, well, bang, now it's spot on. Okay, let's see what this thing can do. It can be pretty low profile, if you need, but it can also reach around pretty long tools. It's dead centered. The frictions make it pretty smooth to set to 0, and that's a 10th indicator you're looking at. If you have tall enough 1 to 3 blocks, you can trim the head without taking out the vise, which is nice, and in general you can put it in any position you want instantly. As I told you before, those radius cuts aren't just for looks, although, yeah, it's pretty gorgeous. I don't know what else to say, I love it, and I can't wait to use it all the time. So subscribe and I'll catch you in the next project.